What channel? I must be. I hope I am. I might be live streaming to the wrong place, but we're going to find out. I'm Jade Frizzell, and this is Basic Military Riding, and we are going through Fort Riley pre-war, pre-World War II, 1935 instructions, because they're the most pure, line upon line, precept upon precept, but I've sectioned out. I was trained by a cavalry chief, and the way that the instructions were produced and set forth are not the easiest way to digest it. So I reordered things. I didn't change things, but I just reordered which sections, the order of the sections that we're going to go through. And I have a workbook. There's a workbook on Amazon, which is the instructions for year one, printed out into one workbook with extra pages, like blank pages for notes and stuff, because you're going to need that. And there's also a link for the entire volume. I think it's volume 2, part 2, horsemanship and horse mastership. But be very careful when you're looking for this material online that you get the 1935 edition or earlier, because after pre-war, it got corrupt and messed up with actually some very problematic things in it. So you really want to keep to pre-mechanization, pre-World War II, and just as a side note, we are going through all the flat work for this year one, and that is directly translated from Saumur 1912. And that's what that's what FCD is, French Cavalry Directives, not French classical dressage. There's really no such thing. Okay. And for today, I just want to say a few more things about section 22, which lays out, it explains sort of how to view all the material. There's doctrines, principles, and methods. And then there is our primary objective. And the fundamental principles of training concern themselves with the objective, which is the development of a calm, forward-moving, straight, and manageable horse. And we are going to talk about principles, for example, engagement, collection, blah, 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 forward, definition. What is forward? What is forward? Blah, blah, blah. Those are principles and doctrine, but I know that everyone is interested in what are the methods, like what do we actually do to get the trained horse? And it's actually laid out really well, and we're going to get to it, but we do need to get ourselves squared away with some of this up front. And I just want you guys to pay attention to how these guys said it to us, because I think it's magnificent. So the fundamental principles of training concern themselves with the development of a calm, forward-moving, straight, and manageable horse. The method of training has these so then there's these objectives. How are we going to do that? The development, we are going to use the horse's physical strength and moral qualities to develop him. And we are going to exploit his excellent qualities and allow the qualities that will contradict his future success to just fade away like a tadpole's tail. It'll just get smaller and smaller, and eventually he will not have a tadpole tail. So this is the way they said it: the development and exploitation of the horse's physical strength and moral qualities. That's one way that we're going to develop this calm, forward, straight, manageable, happy horse. And we are going to educate him to the language of the four natural aids by means of a rational and progressive education and without the use of force. Force is for people that didn't read this book. And didn't understand the book and haven't been trained in the rational, progressive system of education. And right away, I'd say go back earlier to an earlier lecture for section 27 and read section 27 and start reading these underlying principles and ideas that these rational, athletic, amazing horsemen set forth for us. Okay. And then they list as C, A, B, C. We've been through A and B, the search for balance. And I do not care for the word balance in terms of horse training because I think it gets people thinking seesaw and offsetting things. When really we're talking about co-action of all these dynamic forces, particularly the carrying power, the propulsive force of the horses. But then there's their mind and their heart and their ideas and our ideas and the language of the aids. So I'm not going to balance these things. I'm going to make them all work together. Okay. Now, what the men here say, and this is true, but this is important, the progressions of the training, this is section 22, in case any of you are lost. The progressions of the training as suggested herein does not include rules or manner of execution, because I don't know why they didn't, why they didn't make another manual like the majors, but maybe they did and it never got published, or maybe wherever movements are or figures are mentioned, their execution is not entered into in detail. So in this volume, they are going to talk about a half turn in reverse, turn on the forehand, turn up, turn about on the haunches. They do have all the original FEI instructions, which has changes of lead, piaffe, passage, but they don't have, well, it doesn't matter because this is, they just don't have it in this volume. They do have some great detail about some very specific features of training that most of you have overlooked and that will work magic on the horses who are lacking them in their education. Okay. And for our program, so this is, there are any number of school figures. Can you see? We have dozens, if not hundreds, of school figures, and we also use the school figures from, let me show you an example, if I can find one. So here is, I'm sorry, I'm not very good with computers. Passade turns and renvers turns. We have everything we need in the instructions from the colleagues of the men who put this textbook together. So we use all of them, but you guys really do have to know this one, and that's what we're doing. I'm going to continue. So they're saying wherever movements or figures are mentioned in their execution is not entered into detail. Basic military riding, this program does have the detail. If you want the detail, ask for the detail. But the detail does take a lot of study and practice and foreknowledge, which is what all this is. Okay, the training value of such figures Let's just take something simple like the Major's oval. I'll put a link for that, for an article really explaining a very simple figure. And I just call it the Major's oval. It's just a basic oval. But what an oval is actually is a straight line, a curved line, a straight line, a curved line. Sounds simple, but can you teach that so that the horse walk, trot, canters on those simple changing lines? Forward, straight, calm, forward, straight, totally manageable. It's a tall order. That's what this is for. That's what we're doing is for, and it works. The training value of such figures depends entirely on the manner in which they are executed. It's the position imposed, or the horse becoming the line by the rider's aids, which is why we use figures, makes them of value. I'm going to read exactly what this says. The training value of such figures depends entirely on the manner in which they are executed. It is the position imposed on the body of the horse by the rider's aids which makes them of value. So what this is saying is that the lines of travel of the specific exercises that trained riders and horsemen use and show to the horse by the language of the natural aids, those lines, the horses become the line. That's actually a very deep like motto of riding. I'll put an asterisk in the description. The horse's body becomes the line. So a rider that doesn't understand that, he might execute all of the figures prescribed in the regulations in the most approved sequences and never obtain the result sought for. He may never get a calm, forward, straight, manageable horse. But the riders in this program will, because they are the other, working on these same figures, but with clearly defined objectives and using their aids towards the attainment of the objective. They will train the horse very quickly. So I have not given you evidence of that here, but I think that there are a few of you possibly listening who are nodding. Okay, off we go on to another discussion next time I see you here.